So the stock market took a small tumble today, and of course that's going to start a panic on Wall Street. Any little blip on the radar always starts a panic. So could this be bigger, of some bigger things to come? We don't know. Let's take a listen to this Schwab Network guy.
When it comes to this week here, Oliver, because we are in negative gamma territory, not only when you're looking at volume, obviously, for today, but also when you're looking at open interest. And so what this chart is really showing us here is the new levels for the week. The first one that I would kind of focus on is obviously 5,500. Now, we might obviously, touch that level. If you kind of see this downtrend that we have on the left-hand side from last week, if we continue that, pretty much match.
All right, so that's enough of that guy. I want to show you just this thing on Google. So the 1 day trading, so it was at 41,000, and then at close it's at 41,000. So it looks like a drop, right? Because it's only a 1 day thing. If you look at the 5 day thing, well, there seems to be more fluctuations. If you do it over a year, well, look, the stock market has been kind of rising for the past year. It just kind of keeps going up. And if you want to do the last 5 years, well, hell, the stock market had this big drop here in 2020, like this big drop, but then it's just been basically going up and up and up. It stays right here, the 30,000. It stays right there in the middle of this is the Dow Jones average, by the way. So this stays right there in the middle of the 30,000, and it's up here at 41,000. So it's been staying, basically consistent right at that 30,000 line, but it's up here at 41,000. Now, I want to, let's see here, let's click off of that. And let's click on to this guy. This guy actually sounded pretty reasonable to me. He's going to give you 3 reasons about why there's a market sell-off. Apparently, they're blaming the telecom, the technology company. So let's take a look at what he says.
Why the sell-off is happening, and it's got nothing to do with Nvidia. There's no downgrade whatsoever. So the very first one is because the oil has dropped 4 to 5%, and that's caused the concern. Maybe the demand slowed down, the OPEC is oversupplied. And the second reason is because the Bank of America has just downgraded a couple of points off on the global GDP growth, because due to China's slowing growth, they've taken some points off, and that sparked a bit of global growth concern.
So you mentioned that the OPEC did something with the oil prices, so that makes me wonder if it's political. Maybe they're trying to do destabilization, because cheaper oil prices would be good for the average consumer, would it not be? Gas used to be at 99 cents. Now we're getting used to it being about $3, $4 a gallon. Milk is still at $3. I saw, so that's not, milk prices aren't really changing much, but in terms of gasoline, I mean.
And finally, the third one is the weaker dollars, weaker USD. It's been ongoing for the last weeks, but only people are figuring out, wait, weaker dollars means weaker revenue.
Okay, so now the weak dollar. So the dollar has been tanking for quite some time. So I want to, let's see, mention one other thing here. Here's two, there was 2 Marines who were attacked in Turkey. And so I want to mention this just because I think it all kind of ties in together.
Attacked in Turkey while they were on a scheduled port visit. NBC's Keir Simmons has details.
Turkey says 15 people have been detained after 2 U.S. Marines were...
Hey, see, there's a Marine right there. It looks like powder. And they're saying, Yankee, go home. Yankee, go home. Yankee, go home. And then the one other Marine was sitting there saying, help, not him.
At one point, one man unable to break free, shouting for help. According to local officials, a group of 15 people, including 13 men and 2 women, attacked the service members who have been dressed in civilian clothes. The mob, part of a nationalist, anti-American youth group, were immediately apprehended. Officials say 5 other Marines were involved. The 2 Marines who were attacked are assigned to the 24th Expeditionary Unit on board the USS Wasp and were taken to a local hospital as a precaution, but sustained no injuries, according to a Navy...
So the Wasp, which that's an interesting title, Wasp, is that white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So we sent out these ships because of politics. Iran is, talking about defended itself. There was an attack inside Iran. The Hamas leader got attacked inside Iran, and so there's going to be some sort of proportional response. Usually it's just, kind of tit for tat. Somebody kills a couple people there, they kill a couple people there, And then people say, is this going to, explode into a bigger war again? That's almost like identical to the stock market. We'll watch a little bit about this, but I want to mention just that Americans' mystique is gone because of the genocide in Palestine that's happening right now. That shows that Americans don't have any morals. It also says that American Christians don't have any morals either, because Palestine is where Jesus is from. And so as much as we just say Israel is an ally, but an ally for what? To genocide the Palestinians? They're not my ally. They're not my friend. Nixon said that they're like technically they are not an ally, but I guess strategically or something. So what are they an ally for? We're not in a major war. We're not the war on terror. How are they an ally? They're not an ally at all. We're not actually getting anything for the billions and billions of dollars that we give to Israel. And then Kamala, has the exact same policy as Biden does. It's so sad. The innocent civilians of Palestine are so sad. But the hostages. Well, October 7th was what? 1,200 people were killed. 200,000 people have been killed since October 7th. This is such a blatant overreaction. This is what MLK always did. When MLK went to integrate America, he would just say, we're doing a peaceful march across the bridge. And then all of a sudden, all the violence would be attacking and people were just morally outraged. They didn't realize that the racism was so fucking strong. And so this is a colonialist project. It's a white supremacist project. They're Muslims and they're brown people. And they've been living in tent cities, tent camps for 5, 10, 20 years. This shit's been going on since 1948, since it was established. And it's a colony. 6 million people are going to move into a land where 6 million people already live, so you're going to have to move 6 million in, 6 million out. Well, people aren't going to be happy about that. And then with them attacking the West Bank, that's actually just saying they're trying to take it all over. It's not about Hamas. It's about taking over all of it. And if they're going to do integration, well, then you need to start registering the Palestinians to vote. You need to start, adopting the Palestinians as citizens. Those are the only two options. Either the two neighbors need to live side by side, two-state solution, Palestine on one side, Israel on the other, or they integrate and they just live in one big house. That's the only two options that we have. If you live in one big house, you're going to just do a Native American genocide? The two original sins of America was, slavery, segregation, and the genocide. So this is just basically almost America's sort of white supremacy. We've seen what this shit does. And with Kamala being a black woman, well, this is scaring Israel. And anyway, so the mystique, America's mystique is gone. And since America's mystique is waning, you see why this had happened. This had happened. They're going to say that they were arrested, but this just shows you that there's a lot of anger towards America for what they're doing to the Palestinians. The Palestinians, Bethlehem, Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem. If you're a Christian, you should absolutely be ashamed of yourself. Because if you can't condemn the grandfather of all crimes, do you ever condemn any crimes whatsoever? You just listen, it's just hierarchy. It's just a social club. So the religious groups and churches, we're just a social club. You're not doing actually good for the world. So our mystique is gone. And that means we don't have any moral authority. We're the empire. We have 900 military bases all over the place. We should have like an empire report. What is the U.S. empire up to? Because I don't know. We'll just know that we're in another country when there's some shootings. Niger, you heard about the 3 soldiers getting shot in Niger, and it's like, oh shit, when did we go to Niger? Well, we got 900 military bases, so there's no real telling what all 900 military bases are doing. It would be nice just to have an empire report, even just from the empire itself, telling us what they think that they're doing. So our mystique is gone, and that's playing into all of this. And then I got some financial thoughts too.
The Turkish nationalist group, describing themselves online as soldiers of struggle for a fully independent Turkey, posting the assault on social media and writing, US soldiers who carry the blood of our soldiers and thousands of Palestinians on their hands cannot dirty our country, adding, every time you step into these lands, we will welcome you as you deserve. The USS Wasp is part of a massive US Navy deployment in the Middle East, including 2 aircraft carriers that's aimed at deterring Iran amid rising tensions over the war in Gaza.
Okay, so I juxtapose those together because I believe it's all connected. Now I'm just going to make a couple comments. I got some ideas of what America needs to do in order to get our dollar back on track and get our dollar strong again. So just a couple news bits, pieces maybe people don't know, but Nixon took us off the gold standard. Nixon took us off the gold standard either in 1971 or 1973. So Nixon took U.S. off gold standard. This is going to happen in 1971. So 1971, that is important because for the longest time, you used to have just 100 years ago with William Jennings Bryan, there was a big argument about bimetallism because American dollar was tied to gold, but it wasn't tied to silver. And then people were saying in order for the American farmer and the American worker, if you tie it to silver, then that would help it because since the dollar always had to be tied to gold, anytime anybody would go to redeem a dollar, just exchange their dollar for gold, then you'd have to give them your gold. And so when he took us off the gold standard, now the American dollar is just worth the piece of paper that that you think it is. So if you think that the American dollar is worth something, then it's worth something. And if you don't think it is, then it's not. So that's called fiat currency. And that's important because Bitcoin is destroying the dollar. It is fucking beating the shit out of the dollar. It is, putting the dollar in a headlock and giving it a wedgie and pulling its underwear up over its head. And so Nixon takes us off the gold standard. The American dollar is a fiat currency, and we've been a fiat currency for the past 50 years. And so Bitcoin has been destroying the dollar. Also, the U.S. dollar used to be the world reserve currency. The entire world was using the dollar as the medium of exchange. So all these different countries has their own currency, but whenever they would go to, change, say like the marks to the pounds or the peso to the Canadian dollar, anytime the countries would just trade the different currencies, they would use the dollar as the medium, as the middleman. And since they would have to exchange it to dollars and then change the dollars to the other country, that inflated the value of the dollar. That helps America. That helps our economy. Also, China and Russia is no longer using the dollar to trade. So the two biggest countries on the planet, in terms of GDP and land size, population, kind of. India's got a big population, but just two major countries are not trading in the American dollar anymore. And so was this tumble indicative of bigger things to come? I don't know. But I do think that we need a shakeup and we need to pay attention to our financial markets. And I got a couple ideas. We need to tie the American dollar to something. And I think that actually tying the American dollar to a basket of something, not just a basket of currencies, but a basket of actual tangible goods. And I think that gold would be a good thing. Get us back on the gold standard and add silver. I mean, we've been using silver coins forever. Silver and gold, right? These are precious metals. Hell, maybe add rubies and diamonds to the mix. And then tie it to land, too. So tie American dollar to land, gold, silver, rubies, and diamonds. Tie it to actual precious metals. Tie it to land. You only got so much land. They're not making any more land. Not unless you're the Netherlands, but in general, with the rising oceans, actually the land is getting smaller and smaller. So our mystique is gone. We need to stop Israel with doing their fucking bullshit. If we're the empire and we only give a shit about, we get to do whatever the fuck we want to do, right or wrong, well, the rest of the world's going to fucking hate that shit. They're not going to like that. They're not going to put up with that shit. And then that means we're going to be forced back home, and we're not going to do it on our own terms. If we want to be isolationist, we need to do it on our own terms. So the diamonds, rubies, silver, and gold, we could tie the dollar to, tangible things, but also think that we should tie it to intangible things too. We should make an AmeriCoin. We should have our own version of the Bitcoin. So America's smart. We got all these technology experts. Let's get the AmeriCoin. Let's get the AmeriCoin going. We need to tie Bitcoin. We need to beat Bitcoin at their own game. So most of American dollars are electronic anyways. All you have is a credit card. And I once heard that American dollar, even in America itself, is a poor man's credit card. Hey, you got money? Why? What are you using money for? I don't know. And then they got to mark it to see if it's counterfeit or not. Well, get that marker to see. And so 90% of all American dollars are already, it's electronic. So they don't even see the dollars. Americans don't even see the dollars. The check, their income, their workers' check goes straight to the bank. And then they have the bank go ahead and tie it into these reoccurring payments to pay, their bills, right? To pay their cable and their electric and maybe even their rent or their mortgage payments. So 90% of all American dollars are already electronic anyways. So by having an AmeriCoin, then we're actually trading in AmeriCoin. We're already doing electronic transfers anyways with the credit cards and the direct deposits. So we need to beat Bitcoin with the AmeriCoin. We need to tie the dollar to tangible things, gold, silver, land, rubies, and diamonds. And then this one might be controversial, but I guess I'm just thinking that if the whole thing collapses, I'm kind of thinking like what's valuable in prison? When, you know, prison they got shot, they have no materials, they have nothing there. So what's valuable in prisons are ramen noodles and cigarettes. Now, I don't want to exactly tie it to ramen noodles and cigarettes, but I think it's something to consider if it all comes crashing down. Ramen noodles is just a cheap way of getting food, and then cigarettes, because it's all stressful. Well, I would say we should tie it to marijuana. So that is tangible goods. Those are goods that you can actually see and touch, and you know that they're real. Now, there'd be some fluctuation in the markets with, you know, supply and demand. But with marijuana, I think the oncoming, you know, revolution is tied to the last final frontier was marijuana. We're a free country, and a lot of states have recognized that we're a free country. Marijuana is self-medicating, and then it also encourages people to raise marijuana. So just, you know, supply and demand, it'll go up and it'll go down. But if it all comes crashing down, you know, since it's not prison rules, I don't know if ramen noodles and cigarettes will be the thing, but whoever has the marijuana will be the one that, you know, they'll make money. So it's almost like marijuana is a currency in of itself already. So marijuana is already a currency. Bitcoin's already a currency. Gold and silver is already a currency. And these are hard, tangible currencies. Right now, we're just like tying the currency to like other currencies and shit. And it's just a bunch of financial manipulation that's kind of goes over people's heads. So those are my also, I think we should tie them to lithium, computer minerals. So lithium, cobalt, graphite, manganese. Like I said, these are just suggestions, but I think that by having not a shakeup of the financial thing, but a shakeup towards, you know, having a strong dollar. And that was the debate between having us tied to the gold standard, or do we want to tie it to the silver and gold? And the gold standard people won. So that means we never tied it to the silver standard. And then Nixon comes along and then just drops the damn gold standard, which is incredible. FDR actually during World War II ordered everybody's gold in America to, you know, put it all in Fort Knox. And I hear it's underneath Wall Street today. So it's incredible. It was like, okay, no, we need to tie the dollar to the gold. No, we need to tie it to silver and gold. We got to have a strong dollar, but let's make it a little bit weaker with the silver. And then Nixon says, it's just a dollar. We're a strong company. We're a strong corporation. We're a strong country. So the dollar will stand on its own. And the dollar has stood on its own for a long time. So I think tying it into the computer minerals, lithium, cobalt, graphite, manganese, diamonds, rubies, silver and gold, but also marijuana. I think the marijuana thing is actually the thing that'll just be really smart, because it'll get people to think about what is money, what is the point of money. There's three purposes. Do you know what the three purposes to money are? I used to memorize them, but it's a medium of exchange. So that way you can get the cow, instead of having to give a cow for chicken eggs or whatever, you could just have the dollar, so it's supposed to do that. Three purposes of money. The three functions of money. It's a store of value, so the dollar itself is supposed to be worth, you know, a amount of power, a unit of account, so that way you could say, well, how much is that worth? So therefore it's a unit of account, it's a store of value, and it's a medium of exchange. So we need to tie the American dollar. This is just, you know, one American citizen's perspective, but I think it's smart and it's intelligent, and I think that this would get us back on a strong dollar. We need to tie the American dollar to AmeriCoin. We need to take on Bitcoin. We need to tie it to marijuana, cigarettes, ramen noodle. Those are more fluctuations, but it's actual tangible goods instead of just tying it to other currencies. And then also land, gold, silver, computer minerals, diamonds, rubies. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention is just about the Empire Report. The American Empire, we need to make sure that we're responsible. We can't have these overreactions, and we can't just sit there and say that our service members can do whatever the hell they want when they're overseas, because they're going to get us in trouble. If you have, you know, the tentacles all over the place, we need to make sure. I see this shit in my own country. It's almost like we don't know right from wrong, and we don't know justice, and we don't care about right or wrong. It's just about money and power. He who makes the gold makes the rules. And if might is right, then what the hell do we have a constitution for? If might is right, why do we have a constitution? Just a couple of examples about America's mystique being gone. Maybe no moral authority, across the world. It's the genocide of Gaza is the most heavily documented genocide ever. The whole world knows what the hell, is going on in Palestine. We pretend that we don't know, but it's a white supremacist project. It's 1948, and you can look at the history, but they've been living in tent cities. They've been living in this mind-bending oppression for quite some time, and then every once in a while, somebody will throw a rock, and then some people will get shot, and then Israel just goes on a rampage, and they just start obliterating them. They just start bombing people for no matter what. And the hostage crisis, okay, that's terrible, but you're almost saying that it's better to just bomb people, just missile strike them. Because if you missile strike them, well, then you don't have the hostages later on to, negotiate with. So is that better? Is that more moral to kill a whole bunch of children instead of kidnapping the children and saying, we'll give you your kids back unless they're desperate. And desperate people, they have nothing to lose. So you can't really negotiate with them, not so much that they're terrorists. They've been enduring terrorism. They've been enduring terrorism. And so you want to just keep putting a boot on their neck and keep putting a boot on their neck. And then when they lash back out at you, then you're like, what the hell's going on? Kamala came out of segregation, right? They had to bust her all the way across the city. Frederick Douglass learned as a man during the times of slavery, when he was ready to just fucking fight Covey, then Covey backed the fuck up. Covey liked attacking the black men and living in a society, a white dictatorship. A white supremacist dictatorship, a white society, a totalitarian society. So you can pick on somebody as long as they keep on letting you pick on them. The level of injustice is, predicated by those that endure the oppression. But a couple examples of just here in this country of our own moral authority. What moral authority just 20 years ago cops could do as the fuck as they please. That means we've been a fascist nation for the last, 250 years. It's only been the last 20 years that we've been starting to rein our own cops in. You had Andrew Myers, the don't tase me bro. You had the black guy in Virginia City. You had George Floyd. The end of Seinfeld kind of made fun of it too. And so the black guy in Virginia City, he was passing the petition around. So what's wrong with passing the petition around? That's the First Amendment, right? Don't you know your Constitution? You got the First Amendment, that's freedom of speech, right to peacefully assemble, the right to petition. So when the black man is sitting there petitioning, why would, white folks freak out about it? He went up to you and said, hey, sir, are you registered to vote? Would you like to sign my petition? Then you say, no, I don't want to sign your petition. You could be rude about it. You could be nice about it. But if he comes at you politely, you could say, be polite back. But they started charging him and kind of pushing him out on the street. And they started assaulting him and shit. Well, the black guy in Virginia City, Nevada, he said, don't anybody care. Don't anybody care. Because the guy was kind of like being a dick, and he was like, man, I'm having a great day. He was just being a piece of shit. And eventually he's going to get arrested because that's bad PR that don't look good. But ultimately, I think it's indicative of the culture. And so just like Turkey's going to arrest these guys, but there's people in Turkey that's pissed off about this shit. So don't tase me, bro. You had Andrew Myers who asked some tough questions of John Kerry. John Kerry was at a university, and a college student asked 3 questions. Are you part of Skulls and Bones? And then he just kind of blurted out because he knew that they were strong questions. But these damn presidential candidates want to go around America, and they don't even want to be questioned on their views. And then eventually one of the security guys are trying to put their hands on Andrew Myers just for asking a question. And then it escalates, and then eventually he's down on the ground, and he shouts, don't tase me, bro. And people had laughed about it, but after George Floyd, are we supposed to just be bystanders when you see injustice happen? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And in order to have peace, you got to have the presence of justice. So the black guy in Virginia City asked, don't anybody care? When Andrew Myers was being tased, all the people in the auditorium just was quietly, a bunch of Caucasians were in the auditorium, and they watched another male Caucasian get tased, for asking a question. Do we not even understand our own damn Constitution? And it's not just the First Amendment we got the Second Amendment, we got the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. There's freedoms actually embedded in the body of the Constitution as well, so it's not just the Bill of Rights. And then the Good Samaritan, the last episode of Seinfeld, was they were kind of assholes, right? And so they kind of was just poking fun at people and making fun, and it's all, fictional. But since they had no moral conscience with a lot of the jokes and a lot of things that they had done to people, there was that one episode where George's fiance is going to die because of licking stamps. She was licking stamps, and the stamps were poisoned or something. And they all just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Huh? She died? Okay. Anyways, what's for supper? All right. How are the Bengals doing? So the last episode of Seinfeld was the gang, the four Seinfeldians, the four main characters, were watching a fat guy get robbed. And they were just making fun of the guy being fat. It's like, oh, well, he's not going to, pay for his, greasy foods anymore. And so they were making fun of him. And while he was being robbed. He was being robbed at gunpoint. And instead of them saying something, hey, stop that person, they were just sitting there laughing at the dude who was being victimized. And so eventually they're going to sit in jail. So the mystique around the world, I think most people around the world, they know what's going on, and especially if you already hate America, this 9/11 happened because of this shit. So Jesus was born in Bethlehem. If you're a Christian, how can you ignore that a whole bunch of Jesuses, 200,000 Jesus Christ have been killed? There's a bomb I saw that happened right next to a Christian church. So there's Christians that are being kicked off their own land too with the settlers. Now, if you're a Christian, you should know right from wrong. I actually I'm an atheist, but I grew up Christian, so I'm culturally Christian. And I credit Christianity with just asking me the question, what is good and what is evil? What's right and what is wrong? Because these are questions we're not asked in public schools. Public schools that shut up, sit down, they teach blind obedience to authority. And it's all tied to democracy, so the part of me thinks that all we need to do is just get the right people in office. If you elect a good school board, well, a good school board, you could go to the school board and then they would take care of the superintendent, the principal, and the teachers. But if the school board is just as authoritarian, well, then that means the student is on the bottom of the totem pole, when really they're on top because the state is paying them $10,000 for every person, for every child that's sitting in the seats of the school. That school's making $10,000. So our mystique around the world is going down, but I wonder if our own mystique here in our own country is going down when we export all this, a lot of the military things. When you send military over there, sometimes that shit comes back home to roost. That happened with JFK. That literally happened with JFK. He sent the CIA to assassinate the South Vietnamese leader, which was our guy. Diem was our guy. And JFK allowed that shit to happen, and then eventually I think the CIA had something to do with his own. So that means the chickens literally came home to roost. I wonder if it was the same CIA operation. The Bay of Pigs had happened because the CIA had pushed him into it, and then they want to send ground troops and get us stuck in this war. And so JFK actually did a thing where he says, he's sorry that it happened and addressed the American people, and then he wanted to break the CIA up into a million pieces for kind of setting them up like that. So our mystique is, being squandered. And since our mystique is being squandered, I was reading about the liberation of some of the concentration camps in World War II, and people were talking about when they saw the American soldier finally getting, to closer and closer to liberating them, then they were all excited. The guy had imagined that he could actually see him chewing his bubble gum. He could see the baseball hat and seeing the American chew his bubble gum. And that was such a awesome moment for me. It was kind of surreal. But it's like how I hope the world sees us, as actual liberators. So they were in a concentration camp and they were waiting for the liberation day. And then eventually the Americans came up over, the hill. And I think of Life is Beautiful. That was also the American saved the day, right? So we were the good one in World War II, good one in the Civil War, good one with the Revolutionary War. Here's Jill Stein addressing AOC. I'll just end it off on this.
You're just showing up once every 4 years to do that. You're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory.
Jill here. I'm about to board, but very quickly, I just wanted to thank AOC Pelosi so very much for her very authentic concern about growing green power. Clearly, AOC is the attack dog du jour, and the Democrats are running scared, and they should be, because who wants to support a genocide? Who wants to vote for a genocide? And if there's anything that's predatory here, it's saying that your candidate is working tirelessly for a ceasefire when actually they are actively funding and arming genocide and actually refusing to even consider an arms embargo, which would bring the genocide to a screeching halt. AOC, who's supposed to be in leadership of the Democratic Party, it's amazing if she doesn't know about the anti-democratic tactics and strategies that the Democratic Party uses to crush and silence political opposition. They've been hiring an army of lawyers to throw competitors